we've taken our steering knuckle with the hub assembly completely loose from the PT Cruiser. It's a 2004. Here you can see it's splined on the inside of the hub. Chances are this hub's still good, but the drive shaft runs along those splines, turns the hub to drive your wheel. There's your hub, that center circle, then you have your bearing. And just for comparison, here's the new bearing that I purchased. Here we go. Bearing new, bearing old. So just judging by the size of the bearing here, you can see that the bearing will fit the entire circumference of this steering knuckle on the inside. Now we've got to get both the bearing pressed from the steering knuckle and from the hub. The hub is pressed on the inside of the bearing, while the outside of the bearing is pressed into the knuckle. And we'll want to do that in such a way that we can support the bearing races. Make sure that there's plenty of support on all parts of the bearing when we try to push the bearing apart. Now I believe what we'll do first is put a bearing splitter underneath this hub, and basically it should just ride between the hub and the knuckle, and we should be able to then pull the hub up out of the bearing. That doesn't seem to provide any kind of support. Okay, the idea behind pressing is that we've got to support the the knuckle, so I've supported that on two I-beams in the press, and then I'm going to take the press and then just press out the actual hub. It'll slowly go out. I'll show you what we end up with after first pressing the hub out. Here we've got the wheel hub. This is the knuckle from which the hub came. We leveled this out on the press and then just used the press to push down in the center to push the hub out of the knuckle. Since Chrysler so aptly named this the bearing retainer, I imagine this little bad boy must come out first. There are 3 bolts. They look like either 14s or 15s, so I'm going to take those off next. I wasn't really able to tell what size those were, but they are 13s, 13 millimeter. So the bearing retainer retains the outer race of the bearing, so we'll have to make sure that that goes back on there. Okay, so what we have here is our knuckle in the press on top of the 2 arbor plates. It'll pop again once this thing comes free because it's under quite a bit of force, and that's just the nature of physics. Alright, super. Make sure that we can see this. Here we have the knuckle free of the bearing, and here's the old bearing that came out. You can see that there's a little bit of the bearing that was exposed, causing the rust around that one ring. I went ahead and took some real fine grit sandpaper and cleaned up around the part of the hub that will be pressed into the bearing, and I also cleaned the inside of the knuckle here. Okay, Next, what we're going to do is press the bearing into the knuckle, and I'm going to use this handy dandy little tool here. But the idea is I'm just going to use that to apply even pressure all the way across both the inner and the outer bearing surface. The bearing should bottom out, leaving about 1/8 of an inch, I'm thinking, or some kind of number of millimeters or something, if we want to get metric. That feels pretty tight. Let's go with that. Breathe a sigh of relief. I did something. Woohoo! Press the hub into the now assembled bearing and knuckle. But we'll want to make sure that we support the back side of the bearing completely, because we don't want the inside race to push out of the bearing and just possibly screw up the bearing. So in order to support it, I found a disc that will fit in there, support the back side. I'm just going to keep on doing this until I think it bottoms out, I guess. Okay, that's about as much pressure as it acts like it wants to. Turn my press to a fully upright position. And we have a tightly spinning bearing, but it does spin. And next step is to put it back on the car, see what we can do.